First Corinthians chapter 5, especially verse 5. St. Paul advised the church in Corinth that the man that has been discovered to be immoral should be handed over to Satan so that his soul may be saved. How can we hand over a child of God to Satan? For Satan to punish him. But this place is not talking about sending somebody to hellfire or removing somebody as a child of God and sending him to Satan as a subject. The place is talking about punishment. It's talking about giving him a due punishment. And this type of punishment that St. Paul is talking about by way of handing him over to Satan is suspension or a kind of excommunication from the people of God. Suspension, separating the person, the immoral person, from others. A little separation from the church is departure from God. And every departure from God, every separation from God is like being handed over to Satan. It's like moving from darkness, moving from light to darkness. Why is it that we are not seeing such suspensions in the church today? Is it that we do not have immoral people again? Is it that such reports are not going around? Well, the first thing we should understand is that it was easy for the church in Corinth to handle that case because the church then was a small community. So it's easier for them to handle such case. But in our own case, we have a very large church now. And again, the church teaches accommodation, that we are made up of saints and sinners. But the church does not fail to preach that somebody that is living in a mortal sin is actually separated from God, separated even from the community. The life of mortal sin is a kind of is communicating yourself. You're separating yourself from God, from the community, suspending yourself. And that is made visible when you hear the church teach that whoever is living in mortal sin does not partake in Holy Communion. Because Holy Communion is the highest expression of our being together, of our togetherness. Holy Communion is the highest expression of the fact that we are in God and we are communing with God. The church does not fail to teach this. So even without suspension, someone that is in mortal sin is already on suspension, has already handed over himself or herself to Satan. Formal suspension has its own advantage, has its own positive consequences. Positive, even though it has negative too. Suspension is melted on someone so to serve as a deterrent to others. That what this person has done is not good. And suspension is also to help us to avoid infection, influence of the sinner upon others. So that separation may grant those who are still who have not been disorganized into that kind of sin to be affected. So that little separation, that suspension, that punishment will preserve the community and also preserve orderliness. Even in the large church, suspension is still possible if it has become a scandal. Everybody knows about it. It has gone public. It has gone viral. Even in the large church, formal suspension is still possible. It has also a positive influence in the life of the person that is suspended, to help that person's image too, to help the person to go on retreat and have a rethink, or maybe gain remorse. Because being punished that way, being taken away from the community or relieved of the posts and positions that that person is having in the community is a kind of punishment. It's a kind of being handed over to Satan. And that may give that person, such a person, a rethink, so that the person will return to God and return to the community. Formal suspension has its own challenges. There may be difficulty in reintegration, the person coming back. Because when you cut a rope and retie it, the size or the length may not be the same again. So the challenge of reintegration is there. And again, the challenge of having the challenge of dividing the church into parties or the group into parties, because some people may have some reservations about the suspension, or may have some support for the person that is, or sympathy for the person that is suspended. So it might rub off on the community. But when you weigh the evil of leaving the person in that community, in that group, and that of separating him from the group, if the evil of leaving him in the group weighs higher, I think it's safe for us to opt for formal suspension. Suspension or handing over someone to Satan by way of punishment, as I have explained, can also be practiced in our homes. In our homes, where you discover in a very large family that someone, a member of the family, is influencing others negatively. Such person could be his privileges, her privileges could be taken away. The privileges he enjoys in the family, she enjoys in the family, could be taken away. There could be that formal separation from others, even from the family. At times, it serves a purpose, especially when it involves maybe a member of the family. Banishing at times has its positive purpose, but we should be careful and do it in love. Because many of us will listen now, and those you will want to banish are those you don't like, especially if they are not your children. It will be easier to banish a servant, banish a maid, banish somebody you don't like, because you do not love your wife, you are tired of your wife, you banish your wife. You hand your wife over to Satan to be tortured so that her soul may be saved. But what about you? When you fall into serious fault, or even serious fault of immorality, are you banished too? Do you also dispose yourself for banishing so that your soul may be saved? Suspension should be merited in love. Suspension should be practiced in love, so that we may still retain communication with the person we have suspended or the person that is banished. Because if communication is not maintained, you might not be assessing the person's progress. You might not evaluating the positive purpose of the suspension.